Welcome back to the Anisha and Sunjay show. Today I'm going to dive into probably what is my favorite subject when it comes to the production or the creation process of podcasts, and that is cameras. Yes. So if you're not recording video for your podcast, then you should be. So before we dive into all the technical details about what camera you should use, here's why you should be recording video for your podcast in 2025. There's been a massive growth in preference towards video podcasts. Data from the US shows us that US adults has risen from 32% in 2022 to a whopping 45% in 2024. There's a wider generational appeal. Of course, yes, Gen Z are much preferring video content, but this is true across all of the generations. And more platforms are now supporting video podcasts. Of course, YouTube has recently introduced a podcast feed within their platform. Spotify, although it's an audio first platform, they're making a big play towards video podcasts, and they're actually pushing more video podcasts out to people that don't know you than they are with the audio version. They also have a video feed where you can upload clips, you can upload your episode, and now you actually don't have to be hosted on Spotify like you used to in order to get your video podcast on there. There are huge engagement benefits as well. You can chop your podcast up into shorts, into reels, and you can post these on all of the social media platforms that now support video. Instagram, YouTube, TikTok, LinkedIn. LinkedIn's actually recently introduced a video feed as well, so your vertical video content can easily be shared onto that platform as well. Now, I should say that the workflow that I'm going to be referring to in this episode is if you're doing a remote recording. So this is if you're going to be on your laptop and you're going to be speaking to someone through your computer, either on Zoom or Riverside or many of the other podcasting platforms out there. I'm not going to be talking about doing in-person recordings that you may have seen Anisha and I do quite regularly on our channel. That's a completely different kettle of fish, and I will cover that in a separate episode. However, today really we're focused on having a camera connected to your computer just to get that higher quality video content. So with that out of the way, let's get into the cameras and the tech that you need to create your video podcast. Now, most of you are going to have access to some kind of camera. Now, before we get into this, I want to just share that this is my experience of using cameras over the last 6 or 7 years that I've been in video and creating video content. So this is by no means a definitive list, and this is not kind of the be all and end all. There are hundreds of different ways that you can capture video content. I'm going to take you through what I have personally used and what I have personal experience with, and just give my reflections on what has worked for me and also what hasn't worked for me. Okay, so before we get into all the juicy details of the cameras, I just want to preface this by saying if you are listening to this on audio only, thank you very much, and I really appreciate you being there. However, this is going to be more beneficial if you're watching the video version. So you can go onto YouTube, you can go onto Spotify where you will find the video version of this episode. You'll still get a lot of benefit by listening. However, watching will show you the differences between the different cameras that I'm going to try and switch between during this episode. Okay, now I've said many times that the best camera is the one that you have with you. Now, I'm not the person that coined that phrase. I got that from somewhere on the internet, and it's true. So for most of us, that's going to be your laptop webcam. So now you are watching me through my laptop webcam. It's built in. I didn't have to do any special kind of configuration, cabling. I didn't need to figure it out. It just works. You open your laptop and there it is. Now, you've all probably used to using this on Zoom calls, on Teams calls, on video conferencing software. So if this is all you have, then just use this. Now, as you can see, the quality from this particular webcam that I have in my laptop is relatively good. Now, this is a 2024 brand new MacBook Pro 16-inch. So it does have a much more improved camera built in. Now, older laptops are going to have poorer webcams, but like I said, if you just want to get started and you want to get the video content out there, this is probably your easiest and cheapest option. Your upgrade from your laptop webcam is the external webcam that I'm recording on right now. Now, this is a Logitech 1080p webcam. And I should actually say that you want to try and go for a minimum of 1080p. Now, your older laptops are probably going to be working around 720p, which, again, is fine if that's all you've got. But if you can go for that 1080p and get that slightly higher picture quality, I'm just thinking of longevity here. If you're going to have your podcast living on YouTube for a number of years, which of course it will, then you want it to look relatively, up to date in a few years' time. So a 1080p webcam is really what you want. Now, you can probably see between this one and my MacBook webcam that this one's probably slightly poorer quality to my eye anyway, but it's still probably going to be better than what you may have already built in, particularly if your webcam's a 720p webcam. Now, a lot of these cameras are very much dependent on the light that you throw at it. Now, of course, I'm here in this studio environment. I've got 2 lights in front of me here. I've got lighting behind me. So my lighting's pretty good. Now, your lighting situation is going to vary. That's a separate episode, which I will do in the future. But just bear in mind that your mileage is going to vary with regards to what your image looks like. But this is just a simple plug and play USB webcam that I've just plugged into my computer, and this is the picture that you get. And if you want the simplest workflow, this definitely is it, because everything's integrated. There's no faffing around with post-production. It's all relatively straightforward and simple. However, if you want to go after that extra level of crispiness with your video, then there are other options available to you. Now, all of the options I'm going to talk about in this episode are going to be, I guess technically they're going to be webcams, because they're going to be plugged into your computer and your computer will recognize it as a webcam, just like my external Logitech camera that I demonstrated earlier, just like the built-in webcam as well. That's just simply a camera that's recognized as a webcam internally. Now, there are going to be different options that you can use as your webcam. Now, I'm going to go through these in kind of order of, they kind of work with budget. So kind of your cheapest option. So your webcam that's built into your laptop probably is your cheapest. The Logitech camera that I'm recording on here, that's probably your, it's probably £100 or less investment, depending on your budget. You can find different versions and different variations. And then you can get into different types of external cameras. So the next type of camera that you could potentially use that many of us may already have or may have thought about or already know about is your action cam. Yes, of course, I'm talking about your GoPro. This is probably the most popular and well-known action cam, and this is a really, really good camera. You get really good image quality out of a GoPro, and of course you can plug this into your computer and it will recognize it as a webcam, and the image you'll get will be slightly better than the built-in camera on your laptop or an external webcam that you pick up cheaply on Amazon. So this is what the image quality looks like coming out of my GoPro. Now, I'm not recording this as a webcam. I'm just recording this into an SD card into the unit itself. But just to give you an idea, this is what the image looks like. It's relatively good. It can record up to 4K, which is a lot better than your 720p that you're probably getting internally in your laptop webcam. And of course, you can use this not just as a webcam, but you can take this out and you can use it for whatever other reason you want to use it. Attach it to your bike when you go skiing, when you go swimming, anything like that. So there's benefits to having a camera like this if you want to invest. Now, it's not the cheapest option. These GoPros start from about £300-400. So that's quite a significant investment. I think you can do a lot better. If you're going to spend that type of money, there are much better options for you. But again, it depends on your use case. If you really are wanting an action cam and you want to kind of take it out and chuck it in the water and do things like that, then great, go for it. But if you're looking for an option just to sit there and work as a webcam or work as a camera for your podcast, this money that you can spend on a GoPro is better put to use. And I'm going to go through that option a little bit later in this episode. But just to give you an idea, this is what you're dealing with when it comes to an action cam. Now, falling into the same category as your GoPro is something like this. Now, this is the DJI Osmo Pocket 3 handheld camera with a gimbal built in. This is surprisingly a very, very good camera. Now, again, you can plug this via USB-C. There's a USB-C on the port on the back here, and you plug this into your computer. It pops up, it recognizes it as a webcam, and you get relatively good quality out of this too. So now you're watching me through my DJI Osmo Pocket 3. This is simply on standard picture profile. I haven't done anything to the image. It's straight out of camera, and I've just set it on auto exposure, which is what most people are going to do. Now, again, when you plug it in as a webcam, the image might look slightly different to what you're seeing now, but this gives you an idea of what you're dealing with. Now, this is a really good camera if you want to just have an everyday camera for your everyday shots. Of course, you've got your mobile phone, which of course you can use as well. However, if you just wanted something a little bit better than your mobile phone, this is a really good option. This records in up to 4K as well, so you get that nice crispy image. It's got a slightly larger sensor than your mobile phone will have, and of course than your laptop webcam will have, so you will get a much better image out of a camera like this. Now, again, this is not a cheap option. These retail from around £400 to £600, depending on the option that you get. You can probably pick one up on eBay or secondhand if you really look hard enough. But again, depending on your use case and what you want, this could be a good camera and a good option for you just to take out and about. And then, of course, you plug it in whenever you want a high quality webcam. I like this because of its size and portability. If you want to keep your profile low, you want to keep your number of cables and how much stuff you've got to a minimal footprint, this is a really, really good option. Now, of course, let's not forget about the humble mobile phone. I've said this many, many, many times before. The best camera is the one that you have with you. Now, second from your laptop camera or your webcam that you got built in, you've all probably got one of these. Now, these mobile phones, if you've got one that's been made in the last, I would say 5 to 6 years, then you've probably got a relatively decent camera on board. And of course, you can use these as webcams. Yes, you absolutely can. Now, if you have an Apple iPhone and you use a Mac desktop or a laptop, then you're in luck, especially if you've got one of the more modern ones. And I think this is from the M chip onwards, so the M1 upwards. We're down now, I think we're on the M4 at the moment. This can just simply show up wirelessly as a webcam in your Mac OS operating system, and it will show up in your software of choice, whether that's Zoom, whether that's Riverside, whether that's Descript, and it will show up as a webcam, and you can use this. Now, of course, you will need to find a way to mount this onto your laptop lid or onto your monitor if you're using a monitor. But again, you get a relatively high quality image from one of these. So here's what it looks like through my iPhone 15 Pro Max. Now, this isn't the latest and greatest from Apple. This is the 2023 model that came out. 2024, the iPhone 16 came out. However, this is an extremely capable camera. It records up to 4K. You can record in Apple Log if you really want to go professional and do some color grading. Of course, you can connect it to your Mac as a external webcam wirelessly, but you can also connect it to any computer as a webcam, which I'll show you next. Now, to connect your phone to your computer to use it as an external webcam, whether you have an iPhone or an Android phone, you will need a couple of bits of other external equipment. So the first thing you'll need is something like this. This is a USB dongle. And this simply plugs into your computer on one end. Depending on what phone you have, you can get different types of connections here. This one's got a USB-C connection, which goes into my iPhone. And then you can see here on the end here, there is I'm just going to cover my face. There is a HDMI output here as well. So what you would do is you would simply plug this into your phone. You would take the HDMI cable from here and you would plug that in like so. And then the other end of your HDMI cable, you need to plug into something called a capture card. Now, this is the most popular capture card that you'll find in the market. It's the Elgato Camlink 4K. This has a HDMI port on one end here, and you simply just plug your HDMI cable in like so. And then you plug this end, which of course has got a USB. I've got a USB-A to USB-C connection here because my laptop only takes USB-C. And then you would plug this into your computer, and now you've got this kind of setup, which of course isn't ideal, but it does work. And again, if you wanted a simple, super easy setup that you could just kind of unplug and hide all these cables away, then you've got yourself a relatively good option there. So yeah, there's a little bit of investment in these cables and a Camlink. They cost around about 70 to 90 pounds, depending on what time of year you're buying it. But it's relatively a good option if you just, again, want to just use what you've already got and you don't want to have an external camera because you want to use the one that is already in your pocket. Really good option. Relatively cheap. I would say it's probably not as cheap as buying a USB webcam like the Logitech, but if you do make that investment, you're going to get much, much better quality out of your phone. Okay, so those are your options if you want to keep it, I say relatively simple, but you want to use what you probably already have. So you've got your laptop built-in webcam. You may have a USB external webcam, or you can go and purchase one of those relatively cheaply on Amazon, on places like that. And then, of course, you've got your phone, which you can use. Then we're going into the realms of your action cam. So I showed you the GoPro and the DJI Osmo Pocket 3. After this quick break, I'm going to take you through the final two options, which are going to be really leveling up your image quality by getting what I would call a proper camera. So stay tuned, and we're back after this.
Here's a mistake most people make when choosing a supplement: not considering the source of the ingredients. Many supplements use synthetic vitamins within their ingredients. This means they have been made in bulk in factories to mimic natural vitamins. They are chemically identical to vitamins found in nature and often more cost-effective and widely available. However, and this is the most important point to remember, natural supplements and those that come from plants, fruits, or other natural sources have additional benefits and often contain extra nutrients, fibers, and plant compounds that support your overall health and they are generally easier for the body to absorb. You may find that these are more expensive to purchase, but the benefits are definitely worth it. Check out thenakedpharmacy.com, where you can find naturally sourced supplements for your health and well-being. Use code THEASS, THEASS, at checkout for 20% off your purchase.
Okay, welcome back. So we were discussing leveling up your camera quality and getting a proper camera. I use the word proper in inverted brackets. And my top pick, if you wanted to invest in an external camera that is going to give you really professional looking image quality, is this thing here. Now, this is the Sony ZV-E10. This is Mark 1. There is a Mark II version, but this is the Mark 1 version. Now, this is a really solid camera. I love this thing. I actually bought this for Anisha recently to have her office set up. And this is a really capable camera. It's got a interchangeable lens, so you can have different lens options if you choose to do so. The interchangeable lens just gives you more flexibility when it comes to the way you want your image to look. Now, this can record in up to 4K as well, so it's really good quality. Yes, you can use it as a webcam. You just take the USB connection from the side here and you plug it into your computer and plug and play. It shows up as a USB webcam. You could, if you wanted a little bit better image quality, use a capture card in conjunction with this to get slightly better image quality. And I personally would say that's the way to go. If you're going to invest in this, also invest in a capture card as well. And really, the image is not going to let you down. Now, the lens of choice here that I've gone with is the Sigma 16mm lens for this type of camera. So right now you can see the quality of the image from this Sony ZV-E10. As you can see, it should be better than anything you've seen so far, apart from my main talking head camera, which I'll talk about in a moment. This thing records in up to 4K. I've gone with a Sigma 16mm 1.4 lens. That means you're just going to get that nice blurry background as you can see around me. That gives it that kind of more cinematic look if that's something you're going for. Of course, you could change the lenses out. You get a zoom lens. You could buy one with a kit lens. Your options are relatively endless. This is going to last you a lifetime. And as I said, you're going to get a lot better image quality out of this. Now, earlier on, I was showing you the option of using a GoPro. Now, in terms of cost, this costs $400, I think this was $399 when I first purchased it. This Sony ZV-E10 that you're watching me through now, I recently picked this up on the Black Friday sales and it was less than £400 brand new. Now, that didn't include the lens, but I bought the lens secondhand and, you know, for a package of about 500-ish pounds, this is really good compared to something like this. So if you really don't need the webcam capabilities of a GoPro, I highly recommend this Sony ZV-E10. If you go onto YouTube and you search the name Sony ZV-E10, you will see lots and lots of creators using this exact setup with this lens as their camera of choice. Now, the way to go, personally, if you're going to invest in a camera like this, is to also invest in a Camlink 4K and use this in conjunction with the Sony. Yes, you'll be able to plug this into your computer and use it as a webcam, plug and play, no issues. However, you're going to get slightly better image quality if you go with the capture card in conjunction with the Sony. So as you can see, really good image quality, and this should last you a lifetime. I mean, this camera is a couple of years old. They just released the Mark II, but the Mark II is more than double the price of this one. Personally, I don't see the reason for going for the Mark II unless you're going to be wanting some of those more advanced features, which I'm not going to go into in this video, but this Mark I you can probably pick up relatively cheap. The January sales are around the corner, so watch out for the sales and you might be able to pick this up. And by the way, all the links for everything I discuss are going to be in our Linktree shop, so be sure to check that out. Link is in the description below. And then finally, if you want to go all out, yes, we are going into the realms of the big boys like my Panasonic S5 II X. Now this, I would say, is more of a pro line of cameras, although it's not really super professional. There are more professional cameras than this, but you're talking in the realms of thousands of pounds, big investment. You're going to have lenses that are going to cost a lot of money. So your workflow is going to be slightly different and your investment is going to be a lot different. But if you want the best image quality, then this definitely is the way to go. This is what you're watching right now through this camera here. I've got another one of these plugged in here, and I am not recording in my computer here. I'm actually recording on an SD card inside the camera itself, but you can plug these in and use them as a USB webcam. Again, if you're going to do that, I would rather you go and get yourself a capture card and use it in conjunction with a camera like this. Is it really necessary? No, really, if you wanted to keep things simple, I think the Sony is definitely the way to go. And one of the mistakes I made very, very early on was thinking that I needed a huge camera like this, a more professional camera like this, and really I didn't. But the only reason I've invested in these is because this is something I do for a living, right? This is something that I'm now doing and getting paid for. So for that purpose, yes, I want to use these cameras. However, for size, for simplicity, for keeping my workflow simple, having that Sony and a nice lens like the Sigma is really the way to go. And if I were going to start all over again and not do this as a profession, I would 100% look to invest in a camera like the Sony. So having said all of that, what is the best option for you? Well, of course, that's going to depend on your budget, and it's going to depend on what you have available already. If you are just starting out in your podcast journey, 100% keep your workflow simple. There are so many steps to creating a podcast. There are so many things that you already have to think about that you probably weren't thinking about before. So the last thing you want to do is complicate it by getting into the nitty-gritty of camera tech. Now, if it's something that you enjoy and is something that's of interest to you, yes, you can spend hours and hours and hours watching YouTube content, as I did when I first started out. But that just stopped me from doing the thing that's the most important aspect of podcast creation, and that's actually creating your podcast. Now, as I said, if I could go back and give myself advice, I would 100% say use the camera in your laptop and take it from there. However, I wanted to just present you with some options which are available to you that you may want to level up. Now, if you're already recording video in your podcast and you're maybe already using your laptop webcam and you've got some Christmas money to spend, then hopefully I've given you some options that would work for you that might entice you to level up your video quality. Either way, the most important thing going into 2025 is that if you are creating a podcast, if you already have a podcast that's audio only, switch the camera on. Video is going to be king for the foreseeable future, and you don't want to get caught behind the curve. So hopefully you enjoyed that quick fire tour through cameras and camera tech for your podcast. So I'd love to know from you, are you recording video for your podcast if you already have one? And if you are, what type of camera are you using? And if you're an audio-only podcaster, have you thought about or are you going to switch your camera on now? Let me know in the comments. If you've got any questions, drop them down below, and I look forward to seeing you in the next episode.